A political debate like no other. A battle of ideologies, wit, and composure. One is sharp, fearless, and unwavering. The other, overconfident, underprepared, and utterly mistaken in her assumptions. Let the games begin. The stage was set. Spotlights illuminated the grand auditorium of the great American debate. The future of our nation. The most highly anticipated political event of the year, broadcast live across the country. The National Convention Center in Washington, D.C., was packed to capacity. Journalists clutched their notepads. Cameras flashed. Murmurs of anticipation rippled through the audience. This wasn't just another debate. It was a battle between two competing visions for America. Two starkly different ideologies. At the right podium stood Karoline Leavitt, the poised and confident press secretary to President Trump. She radiated sharp intellect, her piercing gaze sweeping across the room, unwavering and composed. On the left, Karine Jean-Pierre, former White House press secretary under the Biden administration, took her position with an air of smug self-assurance. She smirked, casting a condescending glance toward Leavitt as if the young Republican was nothing more than an amateur unworthy of standing on the same stage. A hush fell over the audience as Michael Reynolds, a seasoned political journalist and the debate's moderator, stepped forward, microphone in hand. Good evening, America. Welcome to the most pivotal political debate of the year, where we will witness two distinct visions for the future of this nation go head-to-head. He paused, his gaze shifting between the two women. On my left, representing the Democratic Party, we have Karine Jean-Pierre, former White House press secretary under President Biden. And on my right, Karoline Leavitt, one of the sharpest minds in the Republican Party and press secretary to President Trump. Applause erupted, though the tension in the air was palpable. No one was here for pleasantries. They had come to watch a battle. Reynolds cleared his throat and got straight to business. A first question: what is the best path forward for America? Jean-Pierre wasted no time. She straightened her posture, flipped her hair back, and turned to the audience with exaggerated confidence. I did not come here today to argue with an inexperienced spokesperson. She paused, letting her words linger, her gaze flickering briefly toward Leavitt with barely concealed disdain. I came here to defend America from the outdated, extreme policies of the Republican Party. A smattering of applause echoed across the auditorium, though it lacked enthusiasm. Jean-Pierre pressed on, her voice brimming with self-righteous conviction. America does not need reckless rhetoric. We do not need conservative ideals dragging us backward. What we need is a government that serves the people, not billionaires. We need a White House that listens, not an administration that rules with an iron fist. As she finished, a few supporters cheered. But from the Republican side of the audience, quiet chuckles could be heard, a knowing reaction, as if they had just witnessed a clumsy opening move in a game of chess. Leavitt remained motionless. She didn't flinch. Didn't react. Not a single muscle on her face betrayed any sign of agitation. Instead, she watched Jean-Pierre with the quiet intensity of a seasoned hunter, observing prey, waiting, calculating, biding her time. Jean-Pierre believed this would be an easy debate. In her mind, Leavitt was nothing more than an up-and-coming, inexperienced political figure, a minor obstacle. A foolish assumption. Leavitt was no rookie. She hadn't come to this stage to be lectured. What Jean-Pierre didn't know, what she had yet to realize, was that in just a few moments, she would deeply regret underestimating the woman standing across from her. The battle was just beginning. The massive screen behind them flickered to life, broadcasting raw, unfiltered footage of the chaos unfolding at the southern border. Thousands of migrants poured through gaps in the fence. Some scaled razor wire barriers. Others slipped through unmanned crossings. Exhausted Border Patrol agents struggled to keep up, overwhelmed by the relentless surge. The imagery was damning, an unvarnished look at the crisis gripping America. Murmurs rippled through the press section. Some journalists scribbled furiously in their notepads, while others exchanged knowing glances. they all understood what was coming. Immigration was a political minefield, and Karine Jean-Pierre was about to wade straight into it. She straightened her posture, adjusting her mic with an air of forced composure. "We are a compassionate nation," she began, her voice carefully measured, polished for the cameras. "And that is what makes America great." She paused, scanning the audience as if expecting applause. "Immigration has always been the foundation of this country. We were built by immigrants. Those crossing our borders today are not criminals. They're human beings seeking safety, opportunity, and a better future. The American dream is not reserved for the privileged few." A smattering of claps echoed from the Democratic side of the room, but the response was subdued. The images on the screen spoke louder than Jean-Pierre's words. Karoline Leavitt remained still. She hadn't moved an inch since Jean-Pierre began speaking, her sharp gaze locked onto her opponent like a seasoned predator assessing its prey. Then, with deliberate calm, she lifted her microphone. "And what do you call someone who illegally enters a sovereign nation, bypassing every lawful process, disregarding every security measure?" Her voice was steady, lethal in its precision. "Someone who walks into America without clearance, without background checks, without any verification of their criminal history. What do you call that person?" Jean-Pierre's lips pressed into a tight line, her fingers flexing around the mic. Leavitt didn't wait for an answer. "And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal." The words cut through the room like a razor, a full frontal strike, a statement impossible to deflect. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. No applause, no gasps, just the undeniable weight of reality settling over the debate stage. Jean-Pierre's grip tightened around the microphone. She forced a small, strained smile. "What you're saying is a complete misrepresentation of the facts," she shot back, her tone suddenly sharper, more defensive. "Look at the data. The vast majority of these individuals are not criminals. They are mothers, fathers, children, people searching for a chance at life." Leavitt exhaled a quiet chuckle. "Is that so?" She tilted her head slightly, her expression shifting from composed to dangerously sharp. "Then perhaps you'd like to explain why. Violent crime linked to illegal immigration has skyrocketed in the last 3 years. Why drug cartels and human traffickers are thriving under these open border policies?" Jean-Pierre hesitated. Leavitt pounced. "Do you remember last week when a Texas police officer was murdered by an illegal immigrant who had just been released thanks to Biden's catch and release policy?" Her voice was steady, but the impact was devastating. "Do you know how many criminals have entered this country unchecked? Or are you too busy reading pre-approved talking points to acknowledge the damage being done?" The audience erupted, half in cheers, half in outrage. The debate hall was alive with energy, a battlefield where words were weapons and silence was surrender. Jean-Pierre's face twitched, her eyes darting across the stage. For the first time that evening, she looked unprepared. She skimmed through the notes in front of her, but no pre-written statement could salvage this moment. Leavitt didn't need notes. She had facts. She had conviction. Jean-Pierre could dodge, deflect, reframe all she wanted, but the truth had already landed, and it had landed hard. The battle was far from over, but the first fatal blow had been struck. The stage lights shifted to a cool blue, signaling the transition to a new topic, the economy. The massive screen behind them lit up, this time displaying rising GDP, declining gas prices, resurging businesses, and growing consumer confidence. Under the new administration, the American economy was making a remarkable comeback, yet the lingering impact of past policies still loomed over the discussion. Jean-Pierre straightened her posture, seizing the opportunity to regain her footing. With renewed confidence, she lifted the microphone and declared, "The Joe Biden, former president, has done more in the first 2 years when it comes to the economy than any other president." Karoline Leavitt folded her arms across her chest, a subtle smirk playing on her lips. She studied Jean-Pierre for a moment, as if assessing whether her opponent truly believed the words she had just spoken. Really? Leavitt tilted her head slightly, her tone dripping with skepticism. Who exactly are you talking about, President Biden? Jean-Pierre adjusted her stance. Because if I recall correctly, Leavitt continued, when he left office, we had the highest inflation in decades. Gas prices had skyrocketed. Small businesses were collapsing. And the economy had slipped into a technical recession. Jean-Pierre pursed her lips. We had to fix the damage left behind. Damage? Leavitt cut in, raising an eyebrow. Are we talking about the same administration that created one of the most dynamic economies in modern history, secured nearly $1 trillion in direct U.S. investment, and achieved record low unemployment? Exactly what damage are you referring to? Jean-Pierre tried to regain control. Our administration created millions of jobs and laid the groundwork for a more equitable economy. No, you didn't, Leavitt fired back, her voice sharp and unwavering. And do you know why? Because the jobs you're bragging about were simply the ones that returned after the pandemic. If I take your wallet, then hand it back 2 days later and tell you I just gave you money, would you buy that? Laughter rippled through the audience. Jean-Pierre pressed her lips together. Leavitt wasn't finished. You talk about a more equitable economy, so tell me, where is the fairness when middle-class Americans? Families are paying twice as much for gas as they did 3 years ago. Where is the fairness when small businesses are drowning in regulations while massive corporations rake in billions in subsidies? Jean-Pierre tightened her grip on the microphone. We have put America back on track. America didn't need to be put back on track. It was never off track, until you derailed it. Leavitt's words hit like a hammer, precise and unrelenting. Jean-Pierre came armed with slogans, but Leavitt didn't come to hear slogans. She came to expose the truth. And at this very moment, on this stage, the truth was speaking louder than ever. The screen behind them lit up with a now all too familiar sight, Joe Biden stammering, his gaze unfocused, his words trailing off mid-sentence as he struggled to find the right phrase. A long, agonizing pause filled the room as the president blinked, searched for his words, and then nothing. The moment stretched unbearably, each second serving as a stark reminder of what the entire nation had been witnessing. The atmosphere in the debate hall grew heavy. Journalists exchanged uneasy glances, some subtly shaking their heads. No amount of spin could erase what was playing out in real time. Karine Jean-Pierre cleared her throat, adjusting her microphone with a forced smile. The tension in her shoulders betrayed her. She knew she had to respond, but even she didn't seem convinced by what she was about to say. That was just when he had a cold. Anyone can catch a cold, after all. A low murmur rippled through the audience. A cold? That was the explanation for what the American people had just seen? Karoline Leavitt wasted no time. She lifted her microphone, her voice sharp, unwavering. 72% of registered voters say the president does not have the mental and cognitive health to serve. The statement hung in the air, slicing through Jean-Pierre's weak defense like a knife. There was no spin, no fluff, just a cold, hard statistic. Jean-Pierre tried to maintain her smile, but her grip tightened around the microphone, as if holding onto it could somehow steady the unraveling narrative. But everyone in the room knew it was already out of her control. Leavitt leaned in slightly, her voice cutting deeper. 72%. Nearly 3/4 of registered voters do not believe the president is mentally fit to lead this country. And that's not a Republican statistic, that's the American electorate speaking. They see what you refuse to acknowledge. Jean-Pierre opened her mouth to respond, but Leavitt didn't give her the chance. This isn't about a cough. This isn't about a cold. This is about national security. This is about a man holding the nuclear codes who cannot complete a sentence. The room fell silent. No laughter, no sarcastic remarks, just the chilling weight of reality sinking in. Jean-Pierre had no answer. She could deflect, she could stall, but she couldn't change the facts. She had done everything she could to defend her president, but at this moment, she understood, some truths simply can't be hidden forever. The moderator tried to restore order to the debate. Ms. Jean-Pierre, please name one specific achievement from the Biden administration that you believe surpasses the current Trump administration. A simple, straightforward question. But Jean-Pierre didn't answer right away. The room grew heavy with silence. All eyes were on her, waiting for something, anything, that could salvage this debate. And then she stumbled. I don't think we can just look at the numbers. Numbers don't tell the whole story. The Biden administration has worked tirelessly to put America on a path to sustainable growth. Leavitt tilted her head slightly, her sharp gaze unwavering. Numbers don't tell the whole story? She let out a quiet chuckle. Are you really arguing that objective economic data doesn't matter? Because I think the millions of Americans seeing more money in their bank accounts under President Trump might disagree with you. Jean-Pierre pressed her lips together, desperately trying to regain her footing. I'm just saying that. No, Leavitt cut in, her voice cool, unyielding. You trying to dodge the question? A murmur spread through the audience. Some people nodded in agreement, while others, especially Jean-Pierre's supporters, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jean-Pierre looked lost. You think this question is unfair, she suddenly said, raising her voice as if panic had completely taken hold. The moderator raised an eyebrow. Unfair in what way? I mean, this debate is just throwing out misleading, unnecessary challenges. Not everything can be measured in numbers. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. The murmurs grew louder. Leavitt, still composed, said nothing. She simply smiled, as if she had seen this outcome coming long before it even began. The debate hall was no longer divided. Whatever illusion of confidence Jean-Pierre had carried onto the stage had completely disintegrated. Leavitt didn't have to say a word. She simply stood there, watching as Jean-Pierre unraveled in real time. Sensing the tension, the moderator attempted to restore order. Miss Jean-Pierre, in closing, can you name a single clear accomplishment from the Biden administration that you believe surpasses the current Trump administration? Administration that you believe surpasses President Trump's achievements. It was a simple question. It was also a death sentence. Jean-Pierre's eyes darted across the stage as if searching for an answer, for a defense, for something, anything, that could salvage the situation. But there was nothing. No numbers. No policies. No achievements that could stand against what Trump had accomplished in just the first few months of his second term. Time dragged on. And then it happened. She stammered. I have nothing. Silence. Jean-Pierre swallowed hard, attempting to steady her voice. But the only thing that came out was, I have nothing. I have nothing. She tried to continue, tried to force a response, but once again, she tripped over her own words. I have nothing. I have nothing to say. I have nothing. Leavitt blinked, almost as if she couldn't believe what she was witnessing. Then, a small, knowing smile crept onto her face. I'm sorry, what was that? Leavitt's voice was soft yet merciless. On MSNBC, Rachel Maddow was far less composed. This was a setup. Plain and simple, she fumed. They're tearing down a woman of color just because she refuses to play by their rules. But their protests could not drown out reality. Online, the hashtag I have nothing exploded across Twitter, becoming the #1 trending topic within 30 minutes. The Biden administration's final words, I have nothing. Can't say they're wrong. Fox News doesn't even have to spin this, Jean-Pierre said it herself. Even CNN can't save her. This is an extinction-level event for the Democrats. Meme culture took over. A close-up of Jean-Pierre's panicked face with the caption "Biden's record, I have nothing." A supercut of her stammering, edited over Windows error sounds. A photoshopped image of Leavitt standing at a whiteboard, marker in hand, pointing to a statistic that read 72% of Americans, "I have nothing." Fox News rejoiced. CNN floundered. The media war had reached its peak. But as the media war raged on, the real battle had already been decided. The debate wasn't just another televised political event. It had become a turning point. A moment that would be remembered. Encapsulated the growing divide between two Americas. For Fox News and its viewers, this was the final undeniable proof of the Biden administration's incompetence. For CNN and its dwindling loyalists, it was an uphill struggle to reframe the narrative, though the damage had already been done. But beyond the talking heads and viral headlines, one thing was clear. In the span of a single night, for simple words had reshaped the political landscape, "I have nothing." Long after the lights dimmed and the cameras stopped rolling, those words would linger, not just as a sound bite, not just as a meme, but as a symbol of a crumbling legacy. And for those who had watched it unfold in real time, there was no forgetting.